Hello, good morning, and welcome back. My name is Allison, and I like to watch horror movies. I also like to rant about them, and today we are ranting about The Dark Tapes, a horror film released in 2016, directed by Michael McKeown and Vincent J. Gastani. If you are new here, consider this your spoiler warning. What we do here on this channel is we talk about movie plots and we talk about the entire plot. So if that is not your thing, feel free to jump ahead to my review at the end. But I do not promise that I will not forget myself, and sometimes I lose my filter there as well. With that out of the way, here's my breakdown of the movie for people that don't always like to watch horror movies, but do like to talk about them. So let's get into it. This movie is set up a little bit differently than the other ones that I have talked about. So you'll have to bear with me a little bit while we figure out if this is a organizational issue or a I suffer by myself issue. So if you make it all the way through, let me know what your thoughts are, I suppose. This movie has 4 different sections in it. Each section is a separate story. They are all found footage films. They are all linked in a certain way, and that is not only the found footage, but they're all like paranormal stories, so like ghosts or demons or things like that, even though each one is its own individual film. Anyways, enough of all of that. The movie, we're gonna actually dive in now. The first section is the wraparound, which is the framing around the actual content of the movie. We start the movie with a man and a woman that are outside in this like sort of courtyard area. The dude is on his phone making a phone call like this now, I guess. Phones aren't like that anymore. Anyways, the chick is like lighting / smoking a cigarette, and they're only out there for a minute before he like finishes his phone call, and they notice that there's a camera on a bench, and the dude sort of like leans into it and he's like, what is this? And they also notice that there's a door open. From the tone of their voice and the words that they're using, they're not expecting the door to be open, but we don't get any like information or context before this or even during the like very brief conversation. Instead, we just see them go investigate the open door. Once they go inside, we see that whatever this space is, the like studio or whatever, again, a lack of information, a lack of context is given here. We see that it's a huge mess. There is camera equipment, there's like a bed, there's lights. To me, the scene right here actually looks like a small theater. There's like a small stage area, and my light just went away. Wow. I need to keep that from happening. So, while I do this, I will keep talking. There is a stage area and a bunch of seats. Although they don't tell us any information about that. They walk up onto like the stage area. Again, it's a mess. There's like cameras and tripods and a bunch of equipment, and they're really frustrated, and they're calling someone that the dude seems to blame for it. And yeah, that is basically that. That's the end of the framing. And then we get into we get a screen that says a day earlier, and we go into the rest of the content. And this, for me, I was a little irritated at the a day earlier. I don't like when we get time jumps just like for the sake of them. Like if you're gonna have a date earlier, but like nothing important, like there's no impact there. Just start the date earlier if it doesn't matter. Anyways, the thing that we jump into next is the first story in the sort of anthology of the movie. It is called To Catch a Demon. And this is actually broken up in parts throughout the movie. So we'll get like one part of this and then the whole next story and then another part in the whole next story. I thought that talking about it that way in this video would be confusing or disjointed for no reason. I can understand why they did it in the movie. There was a through line that way that made more sense. It kept us interested and it makes the framing make more sense at the end. But for the purposes of this video, we're just going to clump all of that together because I can. So, To Catch a Demon. The setup for this one is that Dr. Martin Callahan and his graduate assistant, Nicole, and there is an extra person that's with them. It's a cameraman, Jason, but this is another part where they don't really tell us the information. They are using the space they're in to study night terrors / sleep paralysis. They believe that night terrors are not just bad dreams gone awry. They believe that there was a result of something called time dilation. Time dilation has its own like science and Googling you can do. But here's what it amounts to, or at least how it matters in the context of the movie. The spirits that are responsible for night terrors do exist, but they live in a place where time moves differently. So the way they explain it at some point is that if we see these things for like 15 seconds, it means that they have stood still somewhere or in their like time bubble for like 3 hours. That like we experience time so vastly different from them, and that's why we can't normally see them. Don't ask me to go a lot more in depth on this because I am a horror movie lady. I am not a science lady. Like, I am vehemently not a science person. And if there's any theme of this video today, it's that I am no good at like science details. Anyways, these folks in the movie stipulate that humans experience a form of time dilation during REM sleep, and that allows these trans-dimensional entities, or what some people call demons, to be visible. They are trying to perform an experiment to prove their theories true. They have a bunch of cameras set up and a bed and some sort of something that like emits radiation. Again, not a science lady. This isn't really all that important to us, but it is something that they do say. The doctor at some point tells Nicole to turn a device up to like 8 and how that's more radiation. This flips Jason out because he's like, I don't know what all of this is. I didn't sign up for this. And honestly, he's like panicking the entire time. Anyways, they have all this equipment. The doctor goes to sleep in the bed. That again, it's in this room that the people we see earlier were in. So the room that they are in has this like small stage area with some seats that are facing towards it. The bed is in the middle of that stage, and there's like a light on it and tripods with cameras facing it because they are recording the doctor's sleep. He lays down in the bed, he goes to sleep in the bed, and in the recording, after a little while, they see something sort of flit across the screen. It's a bit like a vertical or like fleshy colored static lines, and it's hard to describe because we're only meant to see this like tiny glimpse of it anyways. So they like pause and slow down and like zoom in on this, and one thing that we do see along with these like fleshy line things is we see a blurry sort of face. And I will say that this part, it is fairly creepy. I enjoyed this bit, and the blurry sort of small capture of this face, whatever it belongs to, is part of what told me that I might actually be in for a good time. Walking into this movie, I was not sure. I actually had plans to watch like 2 different movies. I couldn't quite get my hands on either of them, and so I'm scrolling through Netflix. I don't find anything. I'm scrolling through Amazon, and I come across this one, and it looks like it might be okay, but it also looks like it might be horribly cheesy and stupid. And we get the day earlier thing, which I was kind of annoyed by, and then we get this, and I'm like, okay, we might be onto something here. Let's stick with it. They get really excited that they might be able to prove themselves right, that like their experiment is giving them something, and they decide that they need to try again, and they show the doctor this, and he's like, okay, we're gonna keep going forward. And he lays down back on the bed, and they're like, Jason and Nicole have this sort of conversation, where he's like, well, how could he even get back to sleep after that? And how long is this going to take? And Nicole says that he has trained himself to fall asleep, I guess. And I don't know if it's supposed to be like instant, if what she's saying is that this dude has managed to train his body to just like conk out because he decides to. I am not a science lady, but this seems really sketch to me. It doesn't make any sense. Does it make sense to you? If it does, please explain. I owe you a favor if you manage to make it make sense to me. Anyways, he achieves it. So what do I know? Not a whole lot. All I do is sit here and yell at you guys. That's what I know. That's what I'm good at. This time they do something like special when the thing appears. Nicole hits some buttons and they have this like super high speed camera or whatever. And at this point, all hell breaks loose. They basically have trapped the spooky demon alien thing in the room with them. And the lights and cameras cut out. And when they turn back on, or like when the camera's fixed, the main doctor dude is standing there. And there's like the alien demon thing, and he has like his arms and tentacles around the head of the doctor and down his throat, and the alien / demon thing is using him to communicate. But pause for a second, because when talking about these videos, I have up usually like plot synopsises and stuff because I'm a goldfish. I have ADHD. I can remember and rant about things like science not making sense, or like the time jumps being annoying, or the demon phase. But my memory is crap. And so if I don't have sort of like a plot line to jog my memory, I'm gonna be all over the place. Slash have to like rewatch the movie in like 2-minute increments to write it all down. And I would lose my mind, because then I lose sense of like what the big important things are, right? Because I do it this way, a lot of these articles, or like Wikipedia or whatever, they give me information that is not movie like screen given information. So the Wikipedia will say something like the tentacles were down his throat in order to help the demon communicate, but like we don't know that as a viewer, right? I get a little torn sometimes as to like which way to communicate these things, because I don't know, because I'm faced with the words of one thing and then I have my own perception. My perception here while I was watching the movie was not that he was using the doctor to communicate, but more that like the doctor was the first person that he got his hands on, and he was like, I'm gonna do things here. And then he sees Nicole and Jason, and then he decides to talk to them. So, the alien looks at Nicole, who like has a camera on her, because again, this is all found footage. So all of the things that we see are because like Nicole picked up a camera, or Jason picked up a camera, or something like that. And the demon / alien dude tells them to like let it go, that like it's trapped / stuck there. Again, it looks like he's about to like devour him. But yeah, he's telling them like, untrap me, unstuck me. And everyone is really spooked here. And I feel like the alien demon thing is being like fairly nice. It's like, I could put my tentacles down all of your guys' throats. I think that's a different movie. He doesn't do that, because it's not a different type of movie, and instead is very nicely asking them to quit doing what they're doing. But Nicole and Jason, they don't know how to do that, because they're like, the equipment's not on. There's nothing on to like let you go. Everything has malfunctioned and turned on and fucked up. But they are also stuck there, and so they don't know what to do. There's extra panic. Of course Jason is panicking, because why would Jason not be panicking? He's panicking the entire time. They do show stuff like they're trying to get the door open. The door won't open. They're trying to like turn lights on. The lights won't turn on. So everyone is kind of trapped. We lose sight of everything again. And when we come back, like the lights come back on and the cameras come back on a bit more properly, I guess, we see that Martin is there unharmed. They are, however, still stuck. The door won't open, and nothing, everything like that is still messed up. When everything comes back on, we see that Martin is unharmed, but things aren't quite working the way that they're supposed to. They can't open the door. They can't really interact with things in the way that they're expecting, and this is causing them to be understandably upset. Dr. Martin, though, it's not only like just unharmed, but seems to have a pretty good grasp of what's going on. He explains to them that his understanding of it, and probably something due to the tentacle down his throat from earlier, he says he understands what's happening. We are stuck in a different time dilation than our own due to the experiment. Not only did we get like this creature stuck somewhere it didn't want to be, but we got ourselves stuck somewhere else. He tries to explain to them sort of what this means and maybe how to fix it, but all they really do is kind of panic more. They seem a little bit calm, but we see Jason try to run out and grab one of his cameras out of this small like bubble that Dr. Martin is trying to explain that they're in, like this. They're all standing in this, and outside of that, it's like a different time dilation. Jason's not listening when Dr. Martin tries to stop him. Instead, he runs out anyways, and we see the physical effects of these like time bubbles. It's not just that like it's a sense of time, but it's more like a physical barrier if those two things like start moving at different paces. This is a small, very, very small sort of blood and gore warning. It's not even that much really. It's just the fact that like you do see blood. It's no rip off of the leg situation, but he does get caught between two time dilations, and that is like his lower half and his upper half end up in different time spaces. I'm really struggling. I am not a science person, and I'm trying very hard to explain to you guys how he explains it in the movie, but like it's so far over my head. Look, it's so far over my head. I cannot even. It's over your guys' head too. But what really matters is that we sort of see Jason get cut in half, and he falls down on the ground, and he's like coughing up a lot of blood and stuff. And Dr. Martin he knows what happened. He's calm, like as calm as a person can be in this situation, calmer than I would be, calmer than I think a lot of people would be. Truth be told, I would probably be a Jason, but the movie Jason is on the floor. We see like a little bit of intestine before the end of the movie, and I think that this is a good time for us to recap some ground rules. At number 1, don't call the ghosts. It's always a bad idea. And I think that this is even relevant here in this movie because they didn't call the ghosts. They like tried to meet them halfway. Anyways, don't call the ghosts. Don't let your prisoner get away when y'all are confronted with a corpse crone. Like, someone pay attention to him. And don't cross time dilations. I hope that someone at home is keeping track with me here. These are very, very important. I might not understand science, but I understand how to tell you not to do stupid shit in a movie. And I think that has to do with something. Anyways. The two remaining people, Dr. Martin and Nicole, they keep going. They manage to film some more and push some buttons. Kind of like how they were doing before with Martin, like going to sleep so that he could end up on the same time dilation, demon alien things. Some of that comes on the screen, and we see a lot of spooky stuff. It's a lot of like creepy up close like demon faces, and then being on the walls and having bodies that are just not human bodies. They are not like earthly bodies, and it actually is a lot better watching it than it is listening to me ramble about it. And that's true of a lot of things, right? Y'all are just hearing me like gossip about stupid people in movies. The visual effects don't come through this way, and that is kind of a bummer for you guys. I will say, though, that one thing that loses my interest really quick in a lot of movies is when they show the evil bad thing too much. Like when it's supposed to be this sort of unknowable ghostly demon presence that we get glimpses of. Mostly it's like sounds and jump scares and things like that, and then they just like home in on it. They have a full view of the camera, and it loses all the scariness about it. But this movie, it does show them, but not in a way that made me disinterested. They are still panning on and off of them quite a bit. I'm like not comfortable. I need to find a comfier spot to be, you guys. Anyways, I was really appreciative of the fact that they didn't totally ruin the scary part of the movie, especially since that was one of the things that drew me in to keep watching. Anyways, at the end of this section, the cameras cut out and they come back on because that's the whole bit here, right? Dr. Martin disappears entirely from the screen, and we are just left with Nicole and Jason's upper half, which he did not survive that. At the very end of the whole movie, where the last section of this is playing, we see Nicole finally able to leave the building, and I can't really tell you guys like how she's able to do that. It's just sort of a like, well, she's finally in like sort of the right place to be able to do that, and so she leaves the building. There are two people outside when she leaves the building, and they are on the phone, and one is trying to light a cigarette, but they are frozen. She tries to talk to them, she tries to interact with things, and it is not working. And in a panic, she leaves the screen, and she's like losing her mind. She is Jason now. She's having a bit of a look, I'm hesitant to say this. You know, I'm not. I'll just leave it. I'll leave it. Anyway, she panics and leaves the screen. And these are the same people that we see in that wraparound section at the beginning of the video. To the next story in the movie, it is The Hunters and the Hunted. This one is altogether all filmed at once, unlike To Catch a Demon one that we just wrapped up. In this one, we open up to David and Karen moving into a new home. Although I found the information given on this one a little bit confusing, like I talked about earlier with the information that I am given reading about a plot online versus the information that we were given in a movie. On this, we open to her to David holding a like handy cam, and he is filming his wife. She is blindfolded on a couch, like on purpose. She knows that she's blindfolded. It's supposed to be kind of a happy moment. And when she opens it, she sees the new house. It's like fully furnished, and what I thought at first was not that they had like moved out of an old house and into a new permanent house. The sense that I got was more that they were like going on vacation somewhere. And I feel like they even say in the movie, and I could have looked it up before this, but I didn't. But I feel like they were in like a different country or something even. We see them be excited and moving around the house and like looking at the view and talking about how it's like a upside down house sort of situation. But then very quickly we get footage of them talking about weird things that are going on. They're talking about a lot of like banging and footsteps that they're hearing, and they're saying it's coming from upstairs, and they make this big deal about how there is nothing upstairs because the main floor, like the floor you walk in on, is the living room, and then downstairs is all of the like bedrooms and stuff. Like it's coming from the roof, and the article even said roof, but they just say it's coming from up, like it's coming from upstairs. So the information given on this movie and the information I read is all a little wonky, but I guess it's not super important. Anyways, they're hearing this banging and they're hearing the footsteps, and they're showing that anytime they leave a room, things are being like rearranged and they're starting to get spooked. They also show them in a dark hallway throwing a ball. It's like a light up ball that's like flashing and stuff, and they throw it down the hallway, and about halfway down it shoots back down at them, and they do it over and over again, and that's sort of like their proof that there is something in the house. And they really just start to record everything. We pan to footage of David basically taking off his shirt and being like, the ghost or whatever is about to the ghost or whatever has become more physical and more aggressive, and there's like a handprint on his back that's like seared into his back. And they're saying that it's like the third or fourth time that has happened. And my notes on this are very clear. I feel like these movies make me feel like I'm the crazy one here, when I don't think that I am. If you have a ghost in your house that is like aggressively slapping you on the back or whatever, leave. Move out. Go to a hotel. That is my advice to you. I even stopped and like woke my husband up at this part of the movie and was like, would you stay in the house? And he said no, and I was like, damn right, we would not be staying in the house. Why are people? I don't know. Anyways, they stay in the house, and they decide that the solution to this is to call paranormal investigators. And they sort of follow the format. They're like making a recording, begging someone to come help them. And so we get a crew coming in, a paranormal investigator crew come in, and they set up camera, and they kind of look around the house, and they say, we're going to go do research, we're going to collect information. They see just enough evidence to solidify in their minds that something is actually happening, and then they leave the house. They leave the cameras up overnight. They're like, you guys have a good night's sleep, we will see you tomorrow. That night, things kind of escalate. Karen and David are confronted with this unseen force. She's like pulled into a room. He's like yanked down a hallway. And when the investigation crew looks over the footage the next day, we see this figure of this little girl in the hallway, and she's like standing really menacingly. It does not look like a ghost. It actually just looks like a whole solid person to me. But there's a lot of perception that does go in with movies like this, where you're not really sure what you're supposed to think or what's supposed to be there, and you rely a lot on the characters telling you things, and it's all fine. It's all good. I guess I just have sort of an issue with this movie in particular, with the information and the things that I'm seeing, and the things that the characters are saying are not all cohesive. They feel a little bit separate sometimes. But anyways, at this point, they see the figure of like this menacing little girl, and David and Karen, they have a moment where they tell the investigators information, because Karen kind of flips out, and they're like, we had a daughter and we lost her, she's gone. And Karen's like, I can't keep doing this, I can't do this again. And I think the implication is that they lost their daughter and she haunted them, and that maybe that's why they moved. And so the investigators are like, okay, we got this, we'll do it, we'll help you take care of it. And then really like the next thing we see, there's like a small scuffle on screen, and then there's dead people on the floor. And I remember being so confused. I looked away for like 5 seconds, and I came back, and there was someone dead. And I actually wrote down in my notes, I was like, I'm sorry, who killed who? Because it was so sudden and so confusing to me. It turns out that David is the one currently holding the camera in this section. And him and Karen are looking very pleased with themselves. They're like, yes, we did the thing. And David is ranting about like, they didn't even do background checks. How stupid are you guys? And we see this little girl come into the screen. It's not a ghost. It's not just like a shadowy figure. It's their daughter. It turns out she is alive, and she's like ready to get in there with them. I don't know. It's weird. The ending is It turns the tropes that they presented in the movie on their head, and I think it does it in a good and interesting way. I just also feel like the whole thing is, I don't know, it's just a little weird for me. As yeah, it's done well enough that I was intrigued, but it just felt maybe really quick was the problem. But that is that one. That wraps up the second story. Next story that we come to in the anthology that is the Dark Tapes is one titled Cam Girls. And it both is what you think it's going to be and also is not at all what you think it's going to be. This one relies less on just weird things happening to the characters and relies a lot more on like glitches and technical issues and seeing things in the camera that aren't necessarily supposed to be there. Where the other ones before this, like, you are supposed to trust what is on the camera. You're supposed to be seeing like demons and ghosts. And this one is more of a, the participants in the movie are unsure what they are seeing. We open up this segment to a girl, Caitlin, and she's on like a FaceTime call with a friend, and she's telling this old friend about her life at the moment. And again, this is coming back to the like information being weirdly presented and a little bit confusing for me. Because it's unclear right away if it actually is her friend or if it's like a therapist or if it's her friend that maybe has experience as a therapist, even though they appear to be in like scrubs. Anyways, the conversation itself is a little bit odd. They start talking about her drinking and partying with her girlfriend. And there is a comment here that's made from this guy where he says something about like, well, maybe you'll switch sides again, which really, really rubbed me the wrong way. I get the sense that they were trying really hard in this one to ham up the sort of stereotypical like men tropes and the stereotypical sort of like partying cam girl tropes. And so I guess I forgive them, but I did make a note here as I was watching how like put off I was by this. And they don't solve for that necessarily, but yeah, I do get the sense that they were aware of what they were doing, at least. Anyways, Caitlin's going on about how her girlfriend keeps partying and like they're going out and drinking a lot and partying a lot, and how she is like recording things on her phone, and when she is watching them the next day, there are things that like she doesn't feel like that she would do. There are things that feel totally out of character, and this is like really concerning for her. And they talk about this for a moment, and the guy's like sort of giving suggestions on what to do and ways to like help herself. And then her girlfriend comes home, so she hangs up that call really quick, and the girlfriend is trying to like soothe her about things that are happening. And she says, you know what, we're gonna hop on cam and make like $500 and we're gonna go out and get drinks. And that is that. Things have started to show glitchy in the cameras already, and by glitchy I mean like a little bit like freezing and stuttering, but also there will for 10 seconds appear, instead of like me sitting here talking to you, there would appear me like crawling out of a corner or like trying to like peel my face off or like weird things like that happening, but only for a few seconds at a time. We do throughout the movie, throughout the segment, get some of the characters that are reacting to that, but mostly it's just sort of happening on screen in the background. The next thing that we see is they are on what looks like a Zoom call. It is the two girls on the screen, and there's like people coming into the call around them. for what it's worth, you guys did not ask, but this is not how that works. Cam girls don't get on a Zoom call. They don't see the faces of the dude. In 99% of like the websites, there's only one camera on, and that is the girls, and that is for a whole load of reasons. But I guess I forgive them again because they are using the setup for the plot versus like a real cam live situation. For the plot, it does what it's supposed to do, though. They pick one of the people that are there to give a solo, very special show to. Once they pick this person to give the special show to, they kind of kick everyone else off of the call. And then it's just Caitlin, the like main character of the section, and this other dude. The thing that Caitlin does next is she tries to convince this man to... There's really not a better way to put this. She tries to convince him to cut himself for her, and she says just like go get a knife, and he grabs like a pocket knife, and at first he just cuts his hand, and he's like really hesitant about it. He's like, I don't really want to do that, that's weird and it's gonna hurt. And that's fair. I share your sentiments, dude. It is a really weird request and it doesn't go anywhere good, but he does it anyways. Then she convinces him to take it one step farther and do the same thing to his throat. And I whatever I said about the like gore earlier, I think I said specifically about Jason was that like it was just a teeny tiny amount. This one is a few steps above that, I do admit. If watching the movie, they do show all of this sort of on screen. They don't hide a lot of it. He takes his knife, which he calls like a pocket knife, but it's like fairly big. Anyways, I won't get into it. There's a lot of the like screen glitchy type things happening throughout all of this. And the next thing that we really see is Caitlin and her girlfriend no longer like behind the scenes. We see them go into the apartment of this dude, who by the way was like a very nice person. He like gave them a tour of his apartment and everything. He was like very sweet to them. Anyways, they basically make the audience understand that they are like demons using human bodies, and that they were told a long time ago that they weren't supposed to like eat humans, but like they were tired of that, and because he sacrificed himself or whatever, they were able to just go to town, and they show like his neck, and they just go for it and feast on human flesh. And yeah, it's kind of gross. But it is what it is. I forgive that sound. I'm probably not gonna edit it out, so y'all get to deal with it. Anyways, that is that. That is Cam Girls. Next we move on to the last section, which is titled Amanda's Revenge. And this one is a little bit more like packed in the content than the other two stories were, the Hunter and the Hunted story and the Cam Girl story. Amanda's Revenge, there's a little bit more to unpack. So let's dive right in. This movie starts with a party, and I don't think that they are teenagers necessarily, but they're fairly young, so maybe like early college, I guess. They're at a party, and someone's coming up to one of the dudes there, and it's like, hey, your friend is being like dragged to a room by two dudes. And so the person that gets informed of this, plus like a couple of other people, storm into that room and like save this girl Amanda and make these dudes go away. And we pan to the next morning where the three friends that made it stop are all sitting around a table and they're waiting for Amanda to wake up. And they have like a camera set up and they do argue a little bit about like, well, should we be like recording this or whatever? And of course they say yes, because we wouldn't have the footage if they said no. We see her come out into the kitchen area, and the first time that she comes out, she's not in a very good place. Sort of like she can tell that something happened. She gets angry, and there's like a shock that goes through the living room, and she goes back to the bedroom. These friends assume that it's an earthquake, but when they go to look out the window to see what damage was caused, they don't see anything. And when they look online, there's no damage at all. Like, there's no earthquake reported. So, she then comes back out of the room, and this time when she comes out of the room, she's like happy-go-lucky, just wants to eat breakfast. The only thing wrong with her is a hangover. And she goes about her business like nothing happened. After this, Amanda seems to lose it a bit. She's like hiding herself. She like leaves the state. She's calling Ryan, one of the main other characters, and asking for weird favors. Like she says, I have left town, but I'm going to come back. I'm going to I come to your house and I need your help. I need you and the other two friends to be there and to record all night long and keep an eye on me and please stay awake. And they're like, okay, I guess. They feel like it's kind of a weird situation, but they agree. Except that they cannot stay awake. They end up all falling asleep despite how hard they're trying to stay awake, and all the cameras cut off. When they come back on, it is daytime out, and we are all woken up to Amanda screaming her head off from the other room. When all the friends run in, the cameras are moving again, but Amanda's like, you fell asleep, didn't you? I knew this wasn't going to work. I'm screaming again. I thought I was past this. And I think that we're supposed to assume that she is feeling a bit of a response to the thing that happened at the party, but also she's just not really acting herself in any way. The next thing that she does is she, again, is in like another state, and she convinces Ryan to come visit her, and she is trying to tell him that like all these weird things are happening in her life. And one of the things that she's trying to convince him of is that she has like telekinetic powers. She's saying that like her mom also had telekinetic powers. And I think that we get told just enough information that we're supposed to think that people thought her mom was crazy, but she wasn't. And Amanda tries to prove that she's not crazy by showing off her telekinetic powers. And she does that with a deck of playing cards. She like sets them on the table and then lifts one up so that Ryan can see. They go through all of this. They show a lot of stuff like on camera of them like training and her like levitating and all of this sort of stuff. But the next important thing that happens is we see a night of her showing the setup that she has to like catch the things that are driving her crazy. She explains that there is like, I don't know if they name them, but the best description is like aliens that are visiting her and abducting her, and she's ready to put it to a stop. Unfortunately, they can control cameras, they can sense threats, they have like bent shotguns and stuff like that. So she's currently living in a place that has no electricity, like out in the woods. And she has like cameras and sound devices and traps that are all non-electronic. And I feel like this comes into a, I'm not your science lady here. I could try to sit and explain, but I don't know. It's over my head again. So this is the best thing you guys get. She goes to sleep, and Ryan sits in the living room, and okay, the dude sits in the living room in the pitch black. It's like 10 o'clock at night. Remind you, there's no electricity, and he's like reading a book. Someone help. It makes no sense. Friend, what are you doing? Anyways. Her plan works, and we see these aliens get like shot to bits or whatever. And we pan to a FaceTime call where she says, or they're basically saying that like, yes, it worked. There's no more aliens. They haven't been back since that night. There's some conversation about consummating Amanda and Ryan's relationship. Whatever. And then we sort of see that maybe something is now messing with Ryan, and that is the end. And I don't know if it sounds like all that much just from like me sitting and trying to go through the sort of plot of it, but it really is like every second of this one is sort of packed with perceptions of Amanda and emotions that she's feeling and the steps that she's taking and the steps that she plans to take. It's just that in the span of like a 95-minute movie, this is only a quarter of that. And so the plot of it is very small. But it did feel like the most out of all of them. So after Amanda's revenge, that brings us back to the wrap around of the movie again. Like I've said before, the to hunt a demon part was broken up throughout the Dark Tapes film, and it is the last thing that we see after Amanda's revenge is this last bit of the Dark Tapes. And that is the part where Nicole is like fleeing the building, and she runs into these people, can't get their attention, and like panics off screen. And then we see them kind of wake up and end the phone call and finish their cigarette and then discover the video camera, which is the same thing that we saw at the beginning of the movie. I don't think that the wraparound is particularly relevant to the movie in any way. Not that I could find, but I do love myself a good framing that becomes relevant, at least at the end. They were at least consistent, unlike movies like Grave Encounters, where they have this framing at the beginning that's like a producer of like the film that's trying to be made, and then it literally never comes up again until the second movie. And that to me was really, really irritating. So on that regard, the framing and the wraparound is really appreciated. But that is that. We have made it to the end of the plot, and we are at review time. As always, thank you if you have made it this far. I really appreciate it. I know I'm kind of a lot, so I appreciate you hanging in there with me. But now the review. I wasn't sure in like the first half of this movie if I was going to like the movie or if I was going to stick with it, despite there being some spooky moments, despite like the flashy glitches with the face in early part, despite some promising things. There was also a lot of little bits that made me cringe, and I wasn't sure if I was going to stick with it. I also wasn't sure if it was going to be worth like talking about because of the format and all of these things, but I was glad that I did stick with it. I was glad that I finished because I think there was a fair amount of good moments in the movie. As far as like recommending it, I think that's a big depends. It depends on like if you like found footage films, if you like anthology films, if you are okay with jump scares and seeing blood and are okay with having those cringy moments, then like it might be worth putting on. If any of those things are a no for you, I think that you're probably just not going to like it. I did look at some of the reviews and people very irritated at like the overuse of tropes, like the spooky little girl, which I defend this one because they turn that one on its head. but it's still there, it still exists, and I think that that's worth kind of thinking about. It's not a like go out and watch right the second movie. It's not The Night House, which I will never, it's gonna be a long time before I let that movie die in my mind, because it's so visually stunning and beautiful and well written. It's not that, it's not a classic movie, but I did enjoy having finished it. There are a lot of movies that I'm not necessarily happy that I made it to the end of, because it's a lot of time spent on something that like I could have just taken a nap. But this is not one of those movies. I think it was at least worth having a little bit of a laugh at. I think that Jason will go on the list of people that are moods like intern Jill. Anyways, yeah, that is that. Thank you for making it to the end of this, if you've made it this far. I appreciate you guys, and let me know in the comments if there's a movie that you'd like to see me talk about. I think that coming very soon is probably Cabin in the Woods. So stay tuned for that. Bye.